Hello everyone. It's James again. And before I start off today's video, I just want to quickly say, all work in this video contains 100% original content of and by myself James Smith, otherwise known as Bgood 4000, and was uniquely created with NAWMAL software, by myself James Smith. As I purchased commercial rights from NAWMAL to produce my unique and original video with this software. Commentary is uniquely my own thoughts, feelings, and expressions. Now that I have that out of the way, I do hope your day is going way better than fantastic. And your journey to self-betterment is going way better than fantastic as well. Today I want to make a special video, as I think it might help some out there going through possibly a similar scenario. Since the topic is regarding when my narcissist mother became sick. Though there might be similar ties between our narcissistic parent. However, there might be some differences as well, that might make you make different choices than I made during my experience with my sick narcissist mother. These differences could be you have children, and your narcissist mother or father turned them against you, which can and does happen, and what sadly happened in Ollie's case. And I have to say, if my mother was able to do such a thing to me, I might have made a slightly different choice. And I say slightly for a reason. And I will get to that in a moment. But first, what happened to me in my situation? Well, at the time of learning about my mother's sickness, I was already at very limited contact. I still lived in the same state as her, but I moved to a different town. It wasn't too far away, but it wasn't down the street either. So I was enough of a distance from her. I wouldn't interact with anyone that knew her. Why is that important? Well, like we talked about in a previous video on how the narcissist parent will oftentimes run your name through the mud at the grocery store, at the pharmacy, at the local places to eat. You get the picture. I didn't want to enter a store and have someone say, "Aren't you so-and-so's son ever again?" Or get those weird looks or stares from people I hardly know. So for years I had been living a distance from my narcissist mother and my narcissist brother. My narcissist brother, who my mother trained almost since birth to hate my guts. So my mother would use him as the reason why I wasn't allowed in the house, when in reality I moved away. However, the truth of the matter is, if I were to step foot into her home, my brother would likely start something and begin to yell at me for little to no reason. So it all kind of worked out. I wasn't allowed in the home because of my brother's hatred towards me. And I didn't want to be there. I probably would talk to my mother on the phone maybe once every several months. Usually for about 15 to 20 minutes. I stopped taking her bait with getting into deep topics that would lead to me getting upset with her. I always kept it simple and light. And I would change the topic anytime she would try to lead me in an area of conversation I didn't want to go. I probably seen her maybe twice in several years, and my brother not at all. So though I wasn't complete no contact, I had very little contact with them both. For me, this worked out great. Now, if my mother had a son or daughter of mine in her care that she turned against me, I don't know if I would have chose such a route, but maybe I would have. Because like Ollie has said before, he just has to keep a stable situation ready for when his daughter hopefully one day sees the light and seeks him out. But in Ollie's case, understandably so, he was and is quite angry over the situation. As for me, because I didn't have such factors in play, I was able to immerse myself in understanding what went wrong with Susie, and how her problem and my mother's problem was one in the same. Susie, my ex, actually started me on the journey to learn about narcissism, which led me to understand what was going on with my mother and my crazy childhood. Now, was I angry? Yes. Yes, I was. Considerably so. I mean, I had a horrible childhood like many of you had. A childhood filled with lots of pain and sorrow and one disappointment after the other. But for the first time I was starting to get some answers as to why. Because you see, dealing with my mother was like dealing with a metal box with a million locks on the outside and some hidden locks on the inside. I was working so hard since I was really little to get through those locks and find the real person. My mother inside. Hoping somewhere in there was love. However, after learning about narcissism, that attempt to reach her for the most part stopped completely. And I will tell you what I mean for the most part. There were a couple of times shortly before my mother's condition took a negative turn. And she was still very coherent and talkative. I on maybe 2 occasions tried to talk to my mother to get her to admit to my brother the truth about everything. She didn't have to admit anything to me, but at least help my brother with the truth. 10 minutes in the second time we had this talk, I caught myself and remembered who and what my mother was. And that's a narcissist. She was abused as well as a child. She made a ton of bad choices as a result. And here we are. Around this time, I was learning a bit about Derek Prince. Actually, I had come across his work some time before. But this time I really was getting his message and digging deep. And he had a talk about basically honoring a toxic parent or parents. He talked about how the Bible tells us that if you honor your mother and father, your days will be long. And he basically went on to say, Derek, that is, Mr. Derek Prince said that honoring them sometimes means moving away from them. It sometimes means being silent with them. You see, honoring them doesn't mean you ignore who and what they are to a fault. No. My mother was a manipulator. She loved to manipulate people. She tried her best to destroy my life. And she completely destroyed and ruined my brother's life. That is who and what my mother was. And I came to terms with that. But I thought, what good would it do to go out of my way to stoop to her level and treat her like she treated me? So here I was, living a little bit of a distance away, only talking with her on the phone a few times a year. When she got sick, except for those 2 times, I didn't get into topics of conversation of any great importance with her, unless it had to do with her illness. And even then sometimes I still didn't, because my mother was very weird about most things and talking to her about even her illness sometimes was a mess. However, before she lost her ability to function normally, I did get sucked into a few negative interactions. Interactions that involved my narcissist brother. My mother knew the 2 of us being in the same room together would lead to my brother erupting and yelling at me. However, after a few times of this happening, I tried to plan my times when I helped or was there for my mother with her sickness. I tried to plan these times when my brother wasn't around. Which over time wasn't hard at all, because my brother, being a narcissist like my mother, he didn't want to help anyone but himself. He actually convinced her to be put in a nursing care facility because he was tired of helping her. Which, to be honest, was the only place she could go with all of her limitations. So after a while, it became visits to keep her comfortable, to make sure she was at least somewhat okay. This went on actually for a few years. I kinda kept it to myself. Even on this channel I don't believe I mentioned it while it was happening. Then something happened. I noticed her condition was really going downhill. And I knew in my heart she would be gone soon. So I did what I thought was right. I visited her as much as I could. And when she was in her last days, I stayed with her the entire time. She was completely out of it and unable to speak or respond. However, I held her hand. And I prayed for her. And said prayers over her, as much as I could, until she finally slipped away and died. And here's the thing. I'm glad I did it. And this is strictly speaking for me. For me, I knew there would be never any closure to my mother's actions. She would never say she was sorry. Heck, if she was living right now, she would try to do all of her evil all over again. But giving my mother a send-off with prayers, The son that she ran his name through the mud was holding her hand at the end. And the son she held up as the golden child was nowhere to be seen. Here's the thing. My mother was her worst enemy with her sickness. She did the treatments that the doctors gave her at the hospital. Because my mother loves hospitals. I think I've talked about it before. My mother, before she developed real problems, lived a life of Munchausen syndrome. And she often used myself and my brother when we were young with what is known as Munchausen syndrome by proxy. And if you don't know what that is, it's someone that fakes being sick to get medical attention because they are addicted to it. And they love going to hospitals. By proxy is when they get their children to fake being sick. Or they do things to induce sickness in their children so the parent can be the savior and they can rush you to the hospital. Why? Because they love the attention. So my mother loved her trips to the hospital. But when it came time to doing the things that she needed to do on her own, she wouldn't even attempt to try. And I know when it was at the last stages she had nothing left in the gas tank, so to speak. But before then you could see in the doctor's face they knew what was going on. They would give recommendations for things she needed to do at home to keep her healthy. And they knew she wasn't doing them. Probably because she knew it would lead to another trip to the hospital. But eventually the last trip to the hospital was the last trip to the hospital. You see, if you have a sick narcissist parent, first and foremost you have to take care of you. But if you choose to help, or be there for them, please know who and what they are. Their sickness doesn't change their narcissism. Even if they cry and act like they love you, they are still a narcissist. It's okay to help and be a part of their treatments. But make sure you're doing it because you want to do it. Not because you were manipulated into it. Or for guilt or whatever. You have to know this is still a narcissist. A sick great white shark is still a sick great white shark. Now someone like Ollie wouldn't dare dream of doing what I did. And I don't fault him for it. I don't. For me, it was the right choice. Then and now. I did my best to not get roped into negative interactions. I had a few missteps, but was able to correct my course. And I was able to take care of myself. I knew my mother wasn't going to help herself even with her medical care. So all I did was my best to be kind. No drama. No deep conversations. Just, hey look, The Price is Right is on television. You like that show? Let's watch that. Now if your narcissist parent is different than my narcissist mother, and you choose to help, you might be a bit more active in their treatment and home care. But if you are, remember who and what you are dealing with. Yes, they are your mother or father. But they are still a narcissist. Honor them by not talking about anything that can get you both sucked into the drama. Instead, hey look, The Price is Right is on. Let's watch that while we get your medication. Be polite. Be kind. Don't feed into the drama. Even if they try to bait you, don't think their sickness will make you closer. Even though it might seem like it at the beginning of being reunited. Just honor them with knowing they are incapable of change no matter how nice they are acting today or next week. They are still a narcissist at the end of the day. And you will find that besides feeling positive if you are like me, that you felt or feel like you are doing the right thing, you will find that your interactions with your narcissist parent that is sick will teach you how to interact with other narcissists you might come into contact with. Such as slowing things down. Not getting suckered into terrible debates. You will learn how to change the topic. Now if they get better and treatments work, go back to living your life. And here's the thing. You shouldn't stop living your life anyways. But you know what I mean, I think. You might pull back in some of your interactions. You might check in from time to time to see how things are going. But if they are much better and treatment is working, there might be less for you to do. And that might mean less time spent with your narcissist parent, which is still honoring them. Here's the thing. Every situation is different. Yes. It's right to tell you to be careful if you choose to enter such a situation. But I think it would be wrong to say you can't do it or you shouldn't do it altogether. If you know your parent is a narcissist and you know they can't and won't change, even if they act nice today or scared because of their illness, and you make mental notes to not debate them, you might actually be happy you went through such a process. If that's what you choose to do. If that is what you choose to do. It's your choice. But just know who and what they are. And here's the thing. If you are even thinking about helping even if you don't, that speaks volumes. It speaks volumes. What that tells me is you have the Heavenly Father in your heart and you're a decent person even though you were raised by someone that loved manipulating you and causing you pain. Just by even thinking about helping. You're a decent, kind person. And if you have done the self-work, such as bettering yourself and getting through codependency issues, and you are still thinking about it, you are thinking about it because love is in your heart, not hate. You see, narcissists are like the Sith in Star Wars. They want you to hate like they do. So you turn into them. Now for those that do hate their abusers, I can't argue with their feelings. I understand. But just know that seething hate you feel for them is what they want you to feel. Even in their death. Because it's a way of them still having the puppet strings over your emotions and over your life. Even if they aren't on this earth anymore. Well, I think this is a great place to stop. Please let me know if you have any questions. I know some of you might be going through this situation right now. And it's not easy, that's for sure. And I want you to know I'm here for you. And I'm praying for you and your situation as well. I really mean that. And with that said, I do hope your day is blessed. And until next time, bye for now. And be good to yourself.